Hi, my name is Victoria Nazari, and the infographic I chose was on lumber, wood for houses, DIY projects. And the reason why I chose this was I did it on pandemic lumber, its rise and fall, because there was such a dramatic rise and fall over the pandemic. The four economic indicators that I chose were consumer spending, GDP, tied to that, manufacturing activity, housing starts, and interest rates, which all apply to the lumber. So the economic health of the industry, the economic health was excellent because lumber had increased pre to post COVID over 400%, which is incredible. And why did it rise so much? Well, there was a lot of working from home during COVID, which prompted a lot of renovations because people were staying home, and they took on a lot of projects because they didn't have a whole lot to do during the pandemic. Also, in California particularly, there was a big surge in home buying, which sent lumber prices absolutely skyrocketing. Home builders passed on the increased lumber costs to the buyers, which means in California, it didn't stop home building. The builders were still building. They would initially absorb the cost, and then they would pass that cost on to the new home buyers, which averaged about $36,000. And believe it or not, home buyers were not hesitating to pay it. They were paying those increases, and so home builders were confident, and they continued to build, absorb the cost, and then pass it on to the new home buyers. How interest rates affected this whole process is pre-COVID interest rates for a 30-year mortgage were sitting at about 3.5%, and then they dropped an average of 16.5%. They went to 3% and below for a 30-year mortgage, which is historically low for mortgages. So homeowners were cashing in all of that equity because the houses were increasing in value. They had equity, taking advantage of the lower rates, and it increased the demand for lumber because of, once again, contracted renovations, DIY projects, both indoor, outdoor. Outdoor, they were building fences, pergolas. Indoors, they needed money for new cabinets, which increased lumber, tearing down walls, and all of that, of course, affected the supply and demand. There were the delivery times for the manufacturing pre-COVID was 2 weeks. Post-COVID, during COVID, 4 to 6 weeks. So that was over 100%. So it took longer to get the product to the Home Depot, Lowe's, and other manufacturers. So if you'd gone into a Home Depot or Lowe's, you saw a lot of empty shelves because they just couldn't get the merchandise there, the lumber. Now, what's happening currently, June of 2021, prices are dropping. They've dropped 40%. And why is that? Well, there's been a turning point in the pandemic, supposedly, which has allowed sawmills to ramp up production, and some workers are returning to the workplace. And in these particular industries, lumber manufacturing, as well as the delivery drivers, semi-trucks, and overwater delivery, those are all generally higher paying jobs. So there's an incentive for those workers to get back to work because they're making a lot more money than unemployment. So they would go back to work, which has allowed the industries to ramp up production. And they have ramped up production because they haven't lost anything. They've seen that people are willing to pay these really high prices. So for them to ramp up production, even though the pricing, they're selling more. What do I think is going to happen in the recent activity in their industry? I think it's going to slow down. And the reason for that is because people are spending less time at home. They're probably spending less time on their homes because it's just a time factor. If you're working 40 plus hours a week, you don't really have the time to do the DIY projects. They usually get shifted to the weekends if your weekends aren't busy. So those projects get pushed out. So that's what I think is going to happen in the future. But thank you for watching my infographic. This was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it, and I look forward to reviewing all of yours. Thank you so much.